Okay, there is a lot to unpack here. Rosanna, I want to start with you. She said you threatened them. She may want to clarify that, but that is what she's caught on tape saying.
Well, she's saying basically call and make themselves
Raise a
known.
ruckus.
But threaten is a different word when you say threaten. And we've seen Maxine Waters say that too. And people listen to them. Unfortunately, as we know, there are people in this society who take literally what you say. And I don't know. I don't think it was a great idea. Can we get back to the courtroom? Because I think everybody is just trying to figure out what happened in that courtroom with the judge being arrested. And yes, it's concerning. It's disappointing. But I was also thinking about the victims who were in that courtroom. I've covered many cases as a reporter of domestic abuse. A lot of these victims don't like to.
What happens when the very people sworn to uphold the law help criminals escape it? When a judge sitting behind the bench chooses sides, not in the courtroom battle, but against the system itself? Imagine a violent offender slipping out the back door, not because of a loophole, but because someone opened it for him. Today, we dive into the case that's shaking faith in our courts, blurring the line between justice and activism, and raising a chilling question. If judges won't follow the law, who will? Today's story is one of those moments when courtroom drama collides with national politics, and the fallout is raising tough questions about the integrity of our justice system, immigration enforcement, and political bias. In a case that's now gone viral, a sitting judge is under investigation for allegedly helping a criminal defendant escape arrest by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, right from her courtroom. According to reports, the defendant was facing serious violent charges, accusations of domestic abuse, strangulation, and battery. ICE agents had been waiting to take him into custody, but instead of being turned over to authorities, the defendant was reportedly allowed, or perhaps even encouraged, to slip out the side door of the courtroom. And here's where the controversy explodes. According to courtroom testimony and law enforcement statements, a deputy claimed to have overheard the judge instructing the defense attorney and the defendant to use a side exit to avoid the ICE officers waiting at the main doors. Almost immediately after, ICE agents were seen sprinting after the man in a chaotic scene that played out in the streets. Critics immediately sounded the alarm, saying this wasn't just bad judgment, it was active interference with the law.
Something is very fishy here.
Yeah,
and smelly.
they chased him down the street.
They chased him down the street and they got him.
He had some, and there's a debate about how he got out and what the judge
I know
directed
everybody's
him
worried
to do.
about the judge, but you know.
Right. And so what DHS is telling us, it says he has a laundry list of violent criminal charges, including strangulation and suffocation, battery, and domestic abuse. We couldn't verify all of that, but we could verify 3 domestic abuse charges. Infliction of physical pain or injury is what we're told. But Greg, the allegation is the judge felt like that's the guy who needed protecting.
Yeah, I would like to quote Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and every self-righteous Democrat. No one is above the law. Mm-hmm. And that includes left-wing judges who subvert the law themselves. This isn't even about political ideology or even immigration. We're seeing judges who clearly lean towards a specific side. They're called activist judges. But that's
Imagine being a victim of domestic violence sitting in that courtroom. You've made the terrifying decision to stand up against someone who hurt you. You believe the system will protect you. And then you watch as your attacker walks out the side door. No accountability, no justice, just a clean getaway. That's not only a betrayal of the individual victims, but it also sends a chilling message about the priorities inside that courtroom. Supporters of the judge have argued that her actions were motivated by a desire to uphold due process and ensure that immigration enforcement doesn't overstep constitutional boundaries inside state courthouses. They point to past incidents where federal immigration arrests inside courtrooms have had a chilling effect, making victims and witnesses, especially those from immigrant communities, too afraid to participate in the justice system. But critics argue this case isn't about due process. It's about undermining it. ICE officials revealed that the defendant had a lengthy rap sheet, a pattern of violent behavior, and posed a credible threat to public safety. Whether or not you support stricter immigration policies, it's hard to argue that individuals accused of violent crimes should receive special protection from the law simply because deportation is involved.
to try to hinder what Americans voted for, bogging it down and exhausting us with maybe like one case a week. something that they never did with Obama when he deported 2.4 million illegals. They're turning an administrative process into a legal one. Imagine a game where a corrupt umpire throws a flag on every play, so the game can't go forward for one reason or another. This is what they were doing. And by the way, this is what they did to the first Trump administration. They constantly waged lawfare on him. And this is lawfare now specifically pointed at the process that Americans voted for, which is to get the illegal aliens out of this country.
Well, and Greg, to your point about the polls, we have brand new Fox News polling this week that showed that a majority of people do agree and support the president, approve, Jessica, of what he's doing when it comes to border security. I mean, the number.
This incident has reignited the debate over so-called activist judges, a term used to describe judges who are seen as letting personal or political beliefs influence their decisions, rather than adhering strictly to the law. In a legal system built on the premise of impartiality, even the appearance of bias can be devastating. Public trust in the judiciary depends on the belief that judges are neutral arbiters of the law. If that trust erodes, the legitimacy of the entire legal system is called into question. Some political commentators point out the glaring double standard. When President Obama deported more than 2.4 million undocumented immigrants, more than any previous president, there were, relatively, few high-profile protests. Yet under the Trump and Biden administrations, each attempt at immigration enforcement has been met with intense public backlash. This suggests that the outrage often has less to do with the act itself and more to do with who is in power at the time. And here's where the conversation broadens.
Border problem. Now we are actually doing something that people voted for. This is the adult solution, the worst first. What is your solution other than, I don't know, trying to stop the process altogether? That's my question. Is this going to happen with every single deportation? Are they just going to try to hinder what Americans voted for, bogging it down and exhausting us with maybe like one case a week, something that they never did with Obama when he deported 2.4 million illegals? They're turning an administrative process into a legal one. Imagine a game where a corrupt umpire throws a flag on every play, so the game can't go forward for one reason or another. This is what they were doing. And by the way, this is what they did to the first Trump administration. They constantly waged lawfare on him. And this is lawfare now specifically pointed.
According to recent polling, a majority of Americans support stronger border security and expect the government to prioritize removing individuals who have committed crimes while in the U.S. illegally. In fact, enforcement actions focusing on the worst offenders first were widely popular across party lines, at least in theory. But reality is messier than theory. Activists argue that ICE's presence in courtrooms undermines immigrant communities' willingness to seek help or testify in criminal cases. They fear that if people believe showing up to court could get them deported, they'll stop reporting crimes, and that ultimately makes everyone less safe. Legal experts also caution that constitutional protections, including due process, don't disappear simply because someone is undocumented. Justice Antonin Scalia, one of the most respected conservative legal minds of the 20th century, famously stated that constitutional rights extend to persons, not just citizens, but critics. Respond that due process doesn't mean shielding individuals from facing consequences for criminal behavior. There's a critical difference between protecting someone's right to a fair trial and facilitating their evasion of lawful detention. What's especially troubling in this case is the perception that the system itself bent the rules, not to protect rights, but to prevent enforcement of existing laws. If judges are perceived to be choosing sides, deciding which laws they personally agree with and which they are willing to obstruct, it creates a dangerous precedent. If laws are only enforced selectively, based on political ideology, the rule of law ceases to exist in any meaningful way. The consequences of these actions ripple far beyond one courtroom. When law enforcement and judicial authorities appear to be working against each other, the result is confusion, division, and increased mistrust among the public. The larger question is this: can America have both compassion and order? Can the legal system simultaneously protect vulnerable communities and uphold the law without descending into political tribalism? Both sides claim to be defending justice, but when a judge allegedly assists a defendant in evading lawful arrest, it challenges the very definition of what justice looks like. At the end of the day, America is built on the idea that no one, No president, no politician, no judge is above the law. That principle must remain sacred, or else the system collapses under the weight of its own contradictions.